This podcast is brought to you by the School of Advanced Study, University of London.
Thank you. Good day to you all. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Hanna Kietavainen-Siren, and I'm a PhD student at the Department of History and Ethnology at the University of Jyvaskyla in central Finland. And I'm currently close to completing my dissertation and will present it next spring. So, the research questions and the material. Today I'm going to discuss how love between a man and a woman was manifested via gifts, everyday assistance and reciprocal sharing of goods. And by analyzing these manifestations, we will also access the meanings and content attached to that love, both in and outside marriage. And this presentation is based on a part of my dissertation entitled Like War Water in My Heart, Love Between a Man and a Woman in Early Modern Rural Finland. And in my dissertation, I'm studying the meanings assigned to love and sexuality, the manifestation of this love in words and deeds, and the views on the origins of this love. In early modern culture, the question of love was inextricably linked with the views on marriage, the most crucial definer of the relation between the sexes and the bedrock of the household and the whole of society. My material consists of a total of 683 cases from district court reports, which in Finland are available as an almost complete series from the early 17th century onwards, thanks to the construction of a modern centralized state machinery as a part of the power politics of the Swedish crown from the 16th century onwards, as Finland at that time was part of Sweden. In addition to functioning as the means for the crown to control and inform people, the district court was internalized in the everyday lives of the peasants, as people made use of the court to resolve their disputes and transactions or merely to follow their neighbors' undertakings. Accordingly, these records offer us a uniquely rich narrative source which includes descriptions of even the most mundane details of everyday life, like housing, clothes, childcare. However, the function of the transcript records was to enable the supervision of the Turku Court of Appeal over the jurisdiction of lower courts. Hence, the protocols adhered strictly to its procedural demands. And accordingly, all the captivating details to be found in the records are there as evidence of an appropriate investigation and judgment, an alleged crime, and the verdict handed down thereon. And this is why love has to be searched for from cases which to modern eyes tell or reveal rather its opposite. For example, crimes like fornication, adultery, murder or desertion of a spouse, and marital disputes and violence. However, by this negation it is possible to comprehend what was desirable, ideal and loved, and how loving men and women were supposed to act towards each other in early modern culture. And my view in emotions is a mixture of biology and social and cultural construction. I suggest that emotions have a biological unconscious side, everything to do with the brain and its chemistry. But emotions are also a part of consciousness and cognitive deduction, and accordingly, to some extent, they can be constructed socially and culturally, as several historians of emotion have recently noted. And as a historian of early modern times, I can only study verbalized emotions. Sometimes in the first person, by those experiencing the feelings, but most often by the accounts of first-hand observers or even of hearsay. Through the first category of emotional narratives, it is even possible to gain access to the physical feeling of emotions, quite often ignored by emotional historians. In the case of Finland, there is also an additional problem with this verbalization of emotions in the fact that people giving evidence in court were speaking Finnish, as the preceding judges were usually Swedish-speaking, though they quite often knew Finnish too. And the protocols were also written in Swedish. So, whether we talk about the emotional norms and narrative conventions governing emotional utterances and views on particular emotions as emotionology, as Peter Stearns does, as emotional regime, as William Reddy does, or as a language pain, as Joanna Bird does, the fact remains that they follow the vocabulary conventions and ideals of their culture and time. In early modern Sweden, Finland, a major force governing narratives on love was the Lutheran Church, with its emphasis on marriage. Old folkways also persisted, and in these traditional customs, especially material tokens and gifts were a significant part of representing and interpreting emotion. So next we shall look at one fascinating and revealing case and view it in parts on the material side of love. And this is the case of morganatic love of Katarina Sölperam and Erland Jöresson. A noble maiden, Katarina Sölperam, was accused of adultery with her father's married bailiff Erland Jöresson and of a consequent infanticide in southwest Finland in 1687. Apparently, the couple had had 2 children together and had connived in murdering at least the second one. 2 children were verifiably born, though Katarina only acknowledged the first one, and the parties denied both the infanticide and the preceding liaison. In order to prove the more severe crime, which was of course the infanticide, the court needed proof of that liaison and hence interrogated several witnesses, most of whom were employed by the Sölperam manor as farmhands and maidservants. Right from the first testimony, the details of the existence of an affair between Katarina and Erland emerged ever clearer. Several witnesses had noticed a special and intimate friendship between the parties. But how? Actual acts of love, such as Erland embracing Katarina or otherwise showing his affection, had not been observed to take place between them. There were 2 crucial factors: the more subtle hints in Katarina's and Erland's behavior toward each other and their reciprocal manifestations of goodwill. The loving nuances of behavior were apparently read from body language, such as glances, facial expressions and gestures, as well as their poorly built attempts to achieve privacy. What about the manifestations of goodwill? Firstly, Katarina had favored Erland over other farmhands by giving him better food and drink, as well as a ration of spirits almost every morning. The couple had also at least once shared a meal. Secondly, Katarina had herself also washed Erland's clothes and mended his socks, hence taking care of the womanly tasks that would have behoved Erland's wife and definitely not the noble maiden. Thirdly, Katarina had given Erland fairly valuable items, such as a pewter bottle, a bowl and 2 cups, and a pair of socks and mittens as gifts and manifestations of her goodwill. Erland, for his part, had always lagged behind a bit and then gone over to Katarina's house when the servants left for work in the morning, where he had often been seen to go in the course of the day too. When visiting Katarina's house, Erland often brought a bottle of spirits with him in order to attest his goodwill towards her. And Erland was once even caught visiting Katarina's house very early in the morning without breeches. Quite suspicious. A maidservant who had slept in Katarina's chamber felt compelled to change her sleeping place because of her conscience after she witnessed the nature of Katarina's and Erland's dealings with each other. So, basing on all these perceived details, the common opinion of all the witnesses was that no married couple would be more loving toward each other than Katarina and Erland were. Or, as the court record stated, exceptionally in Finnish this time, not even between a married couple might there have been greater love, and that the parties were on terms of special friendship and had lived as lovingly together as a married couple. On the grounds of these testimonies and the fact that the remains of a newborn baby were found in Katarina's fireplace, Katarina was sentenced to death and Erland had to take an oath of purification to free himself of complicity. So, as we learned from this case, gifts were a crucial part of the vocabulary of love and seen as expressions of affection. This connection was based on traditional folkways in which exchanging gifts was an integral part of courtship and contracting of marriage. Neither the secular nor the ecclesiastical law required exchange of gifts for the marriage to be valid and lawful. According to the legislation, an engagement was valid when the parties expressed their free will in the presence of witnesses from both sides and shook hands. The marriage was deemed to have been consummated after the following marriage ceremony and sexual intercourse taken place. Lutheran sexual morals were very strict, sanctifying sexual activity only between lawfully married couples, and accordingly, the legislation on sexual crimes was harsh. However, despite this, it was still common among the peasants in late 17th century to start the marriage more unofficially, by private promise, very often accompanied by an exchange of gifts and sexual intercourse. This discrepancy between the legislation and the folk tradition on the validity of an engagement led to continuous litigation between men and women all over rural Finland. In cases of fornication, that is sexual relations between two unmarried persons and punishable by harsh fines, it was important for women to defend their honor by proving their own chastity and behavior in accordance with traditional norms. And this happened by showing the gifts given by their lovers, and hence demonstrating the existence of the marriage contract. Then men again, they sometimes took downright advantage of women's hopes of marriage to satisfy their sexual urges and seduced women with gifts and promises. However, without witnesses, mere gifts were not valid in court. Gifts given as promises of marriage varied, most often jewelry or money, but also grain or personal items like clothes and knives. The content of the gift was not as important as its symbolic value as a sign of a permanent relationship aiming at marriage. The most iconic gift as a sign of marriage promise and engagement was, of course, the ring, as it is nowadays. The ring was seen as a sign of love between the parties, not just merely a sign of marriage contract, but a sign of love. If the community knew that a couple had exchanged rings, their relationship could be described as love, and they could be unofficially deemed as a married couple. Accordingly, they had a right to sleep together even on semi-public occasions such as visit to friends and relatives. So various gifts, and especially the ring, can be seen as emotives, a term coined by William and Reddy, in the sense that they exercised an effect. Exchanging gifts signaled and constructed love and commitment for both the parties themselves and those around them. And this commitment that was so binding that even sexual intercourse became permissible. Emotive highlights the fact that emotional references always change the emotion they seek to describe and can be used to alter, construct, confirm and hide emotions in others too. Gifts were also a recurrent theme in extramarital affairs, signaling an affection described as special friendship. Here, special symbolic importance and the meanings of friendship and intimacy compared to that of the ring in legitimate relationships was perceived in the couple sharing strong spirits with each other. Drinking spirits together was very often what aroused the community's suspicion of an inappropriate sexual relationship and could even serve in court as evidence of sexual misdemeanor. And in Katarinas and Erlan's case too, it was taken as further evidence of an illicit relationship. Drinking together was so closely associated with a sexual relationship that young unmarried women might be warned not to offer spirits to men whom they could not marry in order to preserve their good name. In marriage, this connection worked in such a way that after an episode of marital infidelity, drinking spirits together was seen as a sign of reconciliation between the spouses. This was also the case after other disagreements or breaks, because enemies didn't drink together. Between intimate parties, gifts could also serve as tokens of love and mementos. Such gifts were usually personal objects or garments that were given to the other to keep. These personal objects relieved longing and desire for the loved one, and were probably also intended to consolidate the commitment. For example, a young man might take his bride's headscarf as a memento, or a woman might give her hairband to her lover to be carried publicly as a sign of her favor. And this, I think, is something that you also talked about this. In secret meetings, the bond between the parties might be emphasized in such a way that the woman wore her lover's garments, for example, his hat. And among wealthier people like the gentry, the gifts were also more valuable, like miniatures or pewter dishes such as those Katarina gave to Erland. So, what then did the testimonies to Katarina's and Erland's love as that between a married couple do? In early modern Lutheran culture, marriage was the ideal way of life to which all other relationships between men and women, even the illicit ones, were compared. The connection between love and marriage was close. The meanings attached to love often refer to Lutheran ideals of marriage and the right kind of marital life. Firstly, marital love was represented as harmony and peaceful life together, for better or for worse. This meant unity and special friendship, a kind of intimacy observed between Katarina and Erland too. In the marital relationship, love and harmony were depicted as a question of will. Do you want to love the other one? And a God-given duty. Secondly, the right kind of marital love meant caring for and honoring one's spouse. This included attending to one's gender-based domestic duties and compliance with the hierarchical gender roles of mastery and submission. In a patriarchal culture, it was the husband who expressed his affection by providing for and taking care of his wife, while the wife responded with submission and willingness to serve. In extramarital affairs, special friendship or intimacy was expressed in accordance with this hierarchical ideal of love. Men might give their mistresses food and other supplies, whereas women might wash their lovers' laundry and cook for them. Katarina, for example, had expressed her love by taking care of the wifely chores of mending and cleaning. Eating together was also a sign of intimacy, especially in a socially unequal relationship like that of Katarina and Erland. However, because of the social and consequent financial inequality between them, it was Katarina who offered Erland better food and intimacy. Thirdly, marital love meant sexual intercourse and union between man and wife. Sexuality was the glue of marriage. It started and maintained the marital relationship, and lack of it could end the whole marriage, as impotence constituted grounds for divorce, together with deliberate desertion and adultery. The sexual aspect of love was so important that the verb to love could also have the literal meaning to make love. Sexual unity was part of a loving relationship like that of a married couple, and this was also observed in Katarina's and Erland's dealings with each other. So then to our conclusion. Do you have time left? Contrary to the views of earlier research on past affection, love was an organic part of early modern experience and understanding of heterosexual relations. Love played its part both before, within, and outside marriage. The grammar or emotionology of love was shaped by popular customs and particularly by Lutheran morals and marriage ethics, also promoted by the Crown. Love between a man and a woman was often depicted as that between the married couple. In this sense, love consisted of duty, friendship, solicitude, compliance with gender roles, and sexual union. The meaning of love as friendship was so important that special friendship was a symbolic synonym for a love affair. According to popular belief, love could also be depicted as possession accomplished by sorcery, and people could render their individual physical experiences comprehensible by referring to the feelings of warmth and coldness of the heart. And this is actually the title of my thesis, which is Like Warm Water in My Heart, because people could say that the love that they felt, it was like warm water was poured over the heart. This is a very beautiful description, rare though, but and Yes, the heart, and then this love and the nature of commitment was displayed to the parties themselves, as well as those in their surroundings through gifts, physical displays of affection such as kisses or hugs, sexual intercourse, private words, which we don't know so much about, solicitude and confidential friendliness. And as in Katarina's and Ellan's case, even a love that was supposed to be known to the lovers alone would be revealed by its material representations.